This video on FPL TV is very proudly sponsored by OneFootball. With a rating of 4.8 out of 5 from now over 100,000 reviews on the App Store, OneFootball truly is the biggest and best app for football news, scores and stats from hundreds of leagues all over the world. As for FPL, you can choose to follow every team in the Premier League on OneFootball and then get live updates from all the goals and assists every game week. Download it now completely free using the link in the description box below. Hey guys, and welcome back to FPL TV. Before looking towards Game Week 5, let's see how the side performed in the previous game week. With 2 free transfers last week, I chose to use both of those to make a big downgrade of Fernandes in midfield, and then upgrade my budget Watford striker Perica to Cristiano Ronaldo. If I was to bring in Ronaldo last week, then I was never in doubt about handing him the captaincy to boot. And in the end, these 2 transfers certainly resulted in a few extra points, with Ronaldo in typical fashion bagging 2 goals on his debut, albeit to some pretty poor goalkeeping. A solid use of the transfers there. Although those transfers paid off, it was my 3rd transfer of the game week that couldn't have gone much worse. For Game Week 4, I took a -4 hit and brought in Calvert-Lewin for Danny Ings. And although Ings did indeed blank against Chelsea, Calvert-Lewin didn't even feature for Everton, and has now frustratingly been ruled out for up to 3 weeks. So essentially, I took a hit to transfer in an injured player that I now have to transfer back out again. Disaster. At the time of making the move, Calvert-Lewin had been pictured in training, and Rafa had spoken fairly positively about his progress. So it was certainly frustrating to find out about the extent of Calvert-Lewin's injury after the deadline had passed. In what has been a decent enough start to my FPL season so far, I feel this is the first real mistake that I've made, and it was certainly a big one. Over the years, I've become a manager that really values my transfers, so it's a real sickener to have to waste another one now to remove him next week, and it feels like I've actively disadvantaged myself to the higher ranked players that I'm already trying to chase down. A really poor move. Because of DCL's no-show, it was my new budget enabler Sissoko who came off the bench for a 2-pointer, and to be fair, at 4.5 million, Sissoko does appear to be one of the better midfielders at this price, coming close to some attacking returns against Wolves. As for the Liverpool triple up this week, it was another very pleasing return with 23 points between them. However, the player that I really need points from the most is Jota, who is my biggest differential of the 3, because when Salah or Trent do the business, it doesn't really help me that much in terms of ranking. Jota was extremely unlucky not to be on the end of some points against Leeds though, with him putting a handful of chances on a plate to a wasteful Sadio Mane, and he really should have come away with at least 2 assists. Better luck next week, I hope. It was a bit of an off day for the West Ham pair last week, with the Hammers scoring 10 goals in the opening 3 games, but being held to a goalless stalemate against Southampton. Benrahma was hooked early and Antonio received a red card, so really not the returns I was hoping for considering this fairly kind fixture. The good news was I was forced to play budget enabler Livramento in that fixture last week, and fortunately he turned out to be a good insurance policy if the West Ham double up did disappoint. In fact, a lot of the points came from defence in my side in Game Week 4, with a clean sheet for Sanchez and a first attacking return of the season for Luke Shaw. It was Luca Digne who was the only defender to blank for me last week, and he's yet to create a single big chance all season. Worrying. I was certainly expecting a bit more from him in a home fixture against Burnley and to begin the season with in general, and if it weren't for other fires to put out in my side, he'd be very close to getting transferred out now. With games against Aston Villa and then Norwich in the next 2, it's likely I'll stick with him for those and then reassess. So for Game Week 4, in the end it was another very decent score, with 72 in total, but of course including that pointless -4, which took me down to 68, still 11 points above the average. Despite that poor decision to take a hit for Calvert-Lewin, I did still manage a green arrow up to 250k, 12 points from the top 100k. I've now managed to stay above the average in all 4 game weeks so far, so even though my season hasn't started spectacularly, once again I still feel fairly positive at this point. 250k at 4 game weeks in really isn't too bad compared to my recent seasons. Let's move on to Game Week 5 now and discuss some potential moves as well as my potential team lineup. Also, if you do enjoy the content here at FPL TV, then be sure as always to leave a like and most importantly get subscribed. You can also hit the notification bell so you always know when a new FPL TV video goes live. At the beginning of this season, when I was first putting my initial squad together, I looked at Game Week 5 and told myself that Bamford and Rafinha were going to be my top transfer priorities for this game week. Obviously since then, Leeds haven't got off to the best of starts this season, but to be fair to them, they have had a very difficult opening run, including games against Liverpool and United, which was exactly the reason why I didn't want to start the season with them. Leeds now, however, head into a much more favourable run, where they'll face Newcastle, Watford, Southampton and Norwich in 4 of the next 6 games. The initial plan all those weeks ago was to have 2 free transfers available to bring these 2 in for game week 5, but then Ronaldo re-signed for United last game week and that really threw me a huge curveball. I've also now got the injured Calvert-Lewin and suspended Antonio to deal with, so bringing in these 2 isn't going to be as easy as I'd hoped, and with just 1 free transfer available, perhaps only one of them will come in this week. Hypothetically, if I had no suspensions or injuries to deal with this week, then Benrahma to Rafinha was going to be the simple and straightforward free transfer for me. But now, with Calvert-Lewin looking to be out injured for at least a few weeks, he has to take the priority, and therefore Calvert-Lewin to Patrick Bamford is my likely free transfer for game week 5. So with that move in the plans, let's see how the side could line up if I do go ahead with that transfer. With DCL being the one to make way, it would of course mean keeping Antonio for now, who is suspended for game week 5. To be fair, even if Calvert-Lewin was fit, I'd have probably kept Antonio all the same, because missing a tough fixture against United isn't the worst thing in the world anyway. It also means he'll be better rested for the following Premier League games, where West Ham face Leeds and then Brentford, 2 games that I'm more than happy to own him for. It does mean though that in keeping Antonio, Sissoko will have to be his stand-in for game week 5. Is starting 4.5 million Sissoko an ideal scenario? Not really. But if there's ever a time to play a budget enabler, it's in a fixture against struggling Norwich. And if there was ever a chance for him to get something, surely it's in this one. In fairness, and in respect to Norwich, the same could be said as well for Gilmour on my bench, as they face each other in game week 5 in what is a bit of a 6-pointer. Although I'm happy enough to keep Antonio this week, as mentioned, if it weren't for Calvert-Lewin's injury, then it's Benrahma who probably would have made way this week, who's now blanked in the last 2 games and worryingly got subbed early in game week 4. For this reason, I'm still considering to bring in Rafinha for him this game week for a -4, but I'm just not a player who likes to continually take hits. Because of these issues with DCL and Antonio this week, I can't say I'm feeling too confident about my squad's chances in game week 5, but with 3 Liverpool players at home to Palace, and with Ronaldo now accommodated into my squad, I don't think I'm in wildcard territory just yet, and will persevere for now. I've also looked ahead to game week 6 already, and I believe my squad looks fairly strong for that one as well. For the captaincy in game week 5, for me, it's largely between the 2 big hitters Mo Salah and Ronaldo, 2 that are extremely difficult to separate this week. And although I do believe that Alexander-Arnold has to be in the conversation as well, hence why I've highlighted him here, for me personally, I've always found it difficult to really go through with captaining a defender. There's certainly a lot of merit to doing it this week, with Trent being top of the creative stats amongst all players in the league and having consistently returned in every game week so far. His opponents Palace have only had 9 shots on target for the season so far as well, the second least in the division, so surely a real chance of returns at both ends of the pitch here. In terms of deciding between Mo Salah and Ronaldo, well, neither of their opponents have defended too badly this season, with both West Ham and Palace only conceding 5 goals each in the opening 4 games. For now, the armband defaults to Mo Salah, simply for the fact that it's a home fixture, which definitely bears more weight now with the fans being back. It's also worth noting that all 5 goals that Palace have conceded so far this season have been away from home, 3 against Chelsea and 2 against West Ham. My captaincy this week is anything but decided though, and Ronaldo still remains a strong contender simply for who he is, an out-and-out goal machine. And although West Ham have been very impressive so far this season, let's not forget they have had it fairly kind in terms of fixtures, and when the likes of Pogba, Bruno, Ronaldo and co visit them this week, perhaps they won't be as strong, especially with them missing their talisman Antonio on the day. So that's all my thoughts and considerations for my team in Game Week 5. As always, if you are interested to see the final team lineup, transfers and captaincy, you can do so over on Twitter shortly before the Game Week deadline. If you haven't already, be sure to get subscribed to FPL TV. Good luck to you all for the upcoming game week, FPL responsibly, and I'll catch you all very soon.